Hello, everyone. This is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today for another astrological relationship synastry reading for Meagan Good and Jonathan Majors. Now, initially, I did not take this couple or this relationship seriously. I thought it was just PR for both of them. When they first stepped out as a couple, I remember the shock and the horror expressed by Black women who were offended by the idea that Jonathan would ever have a chance with Meagan Good, especially considering the fact that Jonathan's career was in freefall because of a white woman that he was dating and broke up with. Black women believe that Meagan Good, who's been a sex symbol in the community for over 20 years now, they believe that Meagan is the cleanup woman for Jonathan's public image now that the white community has gotten rid of him because of this domestic violence situation that he was involved in. But apparently, they're in a real relationship. And when I started to think about these two as an actual couple, I put on my astrology hat and guessed that there were some significant Mars, Venus, and Neptune aspects between them. Mars dealing with passion and sexual chemistry, Venus dealing with attraction, romance, and sensuality, and Neptune as the master of delusion, deception, and wishful thinking. As a matter of fact, I guessed that Neptune was the main culprit for this relationship, and lo and behold, after looking at both of their charts, I was correct. But there is another planet that I overlooked, which is extremely important for this relationship, which I do not think will go the distance unless some serious sacrifices are made and both parties are very mature. Unfortunately, when people make too many sacrifices for a relationship, they end up resenting the person they made the sacrifices for. So according to Astro.com, Meagan Good is a Leo. She was born on August 8th, 1981 at 8:16 a.m. in Panorama City, California. Jonathan Majors is another California native. He's a Virgo, born on September 7th, 1989 in Lompoc, California. I do not have Jonathan's time of birth. I've already completed a natal chart interpretation for Jonathan Majors for my Stargazer members. If you want to take a look at that, you can listen to that podcast here, and the link to the Stargazer membership tier is in the comment section. Now back to Meagan and Jonathan. You know, Virgos are attracted to Leo's quiet confidence, their enthusiasm and exuberance, and Leos are attracted to Virgo's quiet strength, reliability, and grounded humility. Virgo's earthiness and practicality makes Leos feel safe and secure, and Virgos like to live vicariously through Leo. Virgo likes to serve, and Leos like to be served. So on the surface, this relationship makes sense. Meagan has the sun in Leo, moon in Scorpio, ascendant in Virgo, Mercury in Leo, almost in conjunct with her sun. She's very intelligent, but she can suffer from hubris or thinking she knows more than everyone else. She has Venus in Virgo, Mars in Cancer, Jupiter in Libra, Saturn in Libra, Uranus in Scorpio, Neptune in Sagittarius, and Pluto in Libra. Jonathan has the sun in Virgo, moon in Sagittarius, Mercury in Libra, Venus in Libra, Mars in Virgo, Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune in Capricorn, and Pluto in Scorpio. Off the top, from what I'm seeing here, the relationship is very sexual, which makes sense because why else would these two people be together? There are several aspects here that show a very high sexual chemistry between these two. For example, Meagan's Pluto in Libra makes a conjunction with Jonathan's Venus in Libra. Jonathan's Mars in Virgo makes a conjunction with Meagan's Venus in Virgo. Jonathan's Venus in Libra makes a square aspect with Meagan's Mars in Cancer. Jonathan's Mars in Virgo is in Meagan's first house, and Jonathan's Pluto in Scorpio is making a square aspect with Meagan's Sun in Leo. Pluto, Sun squares represent the death of the ego. This relationship will be very cathartic for both Jonathan and Meagan, okay? Now, I'm going to be honest. I can see the sexual chemistry between these two, which can easily be mistaken for love and compatibility. And as I tell my clients, sexual chemistry is the hook that is used to force people to learn important lessons about themselves through their partners. Please stop confusing sex with love. You may love having sex with someone, but that does not mean you truly love them or that they truly love you. So let's talk about love for a second. Venus. Venus is the planet of romance, beauty, creativity, relationships, harmony, refinement, and pleasure of all kinds. Meagan's Venus is in Virgo, which is concerning for me because it is in its debilitation here. Not only is Meagan's Venus in debilitation, it is afflicted by Neptune in Sagittarius, which is forming a square. Neptune, in my opinion, is a malefic for relationships, okay? Neptune and Sagittarius natives will sacrifice everything for what they believe in, from politics to relationships. Virgos in general are not very superficial and they prefer natural beauty, the men and the women. For better or worse, Venus and Virgo natives are not attracted to pretty boy types or women who wear a lot of makeup and fake hair for the most part. They like natural looking partners who may be rugged or very plain. Also, what is concerning about Venus and Virgo is that some of them suffer from broken wing or broken bird syndrome. They may be attracted to damsels in distress, dusties, or broken people that need to be fixed because of poverty or mental illness or some other character defect. Because of their affinity for broken or damaged people, Venus and Virgo natives have a high tolerance for abuse and disrespect because they prefer to be with imperfect people who need fixing. They may even get turned off if you treat them too nicely or you don't need them anymore. For Meagan, this characteristic is exacerbated by her natal Neptune square Venus aspect. Neptune is the planet of delusions, fantasies, self-deception, projection, sacrifices, and betrayal. Meagan has a tendency to betray herself with her delusional beliefs that she can fix someone who is broken, damaged, or abusive by loving them or having sex with them. And I suspect that this is one of the reasons why her marriage to Devon Franklin ended, because on paper, Devon appeared to be perfect, and there may have been nothing for Meagan to fix. I think that she may have been bored, just like Jada Pinkett was bored with Will Smith and had an affair with August Alsina, someone who needed to be fixed, someone who was damaged, right? Someone who gave her a job to do. I did a chart analysis for Jada Pinkett for my Stargaze members as well, if you want to check that out. Now, Meagan has Neptune square her ascendant, which also makes a square to Jonathan's sun. She does not see him or this relationship clearly. And unfortunately, with the Pluto aspects between them, she will not walk away from this relationship until she learns some very painful lessons about her self-worth. Meagan stated that her friends warned her to stay away from Jonathan, but she ignored them. Now, here is my PSA for people with Neptune, conjunct, square, or opposite any of their personal planets. Please get a second or third opinion about anything you want to do, especially when you're getting involved with relationships and money. Neptune is a beauty filter. It makes you see the world with rose-tinted glasses depending on the planets it is aspecting in the house that it is in. As an example, Shanquella Robinson, rest in peace to her. She was surrounded by a bunch of haters and vipers and people who wanted to do her harm. She has the Sun in Capricorn conjunct Neptune in Capricorn. She was not aware that the people around her did not like her. She ignored all the red flags and the signs that she had haters around her because Neptune sees things the way that they should be or that they could be. This is wishful thinking. They don't see people as they are. They project who they are onto other people. So if I'm a nice person and I'm a good person, I'm going to assume that people will treat me the way that I'm treating them. And unfortunately, this is not true. This is Earth, the ghettoest planet in this solar system. People will do you dirty if they have the opportunity to, especially if you're not heeding the warning signs, you're too innocent, you're too naive, you're too trusting. Neptune affects your ability to think critically. It is an enemy to Saturn and vice versa. Saturn isn't like Neptune, and Neptune ain't really dealing with Saturn like that. Again, with Neptune, you're not seeing things clearly. You are projecting qualities on your partner that do not exist. You're seeing the potential. You're walking through life with rose-tinted glasses. You're in love with the possibility and the potential, not the reality of who this person is. Meagan has fallen for a man who was in court for domestic violence. I'm not saying that Jonathan Major is a woman beater and a terrorist and, someone who doesn't deserve love, but this is a huge damn red flag. Just like Whitney Houston was warned to stay away from Bobby Brown and he got somebody pregnant while they were engaged. Neptune will have Meagan confusing red flags for green light. Whitney Houston, I love her, rest in peace to her. She had the same problem. She was born with Neptune square her sun, and she was a Pisces ascendant. She was warned by many people not to date Bobby Brown. And she ignored everyone because of her intense sexual chemistry with Bobby. And then when the sexual chemistry wanes because of time and because of core compatibility issues, here comes the resentment. Here comes the anger. Here comes the violence. And Meagan has to be careful about this because, like Whitney and Bobby, she and Jonathan have dissonant Mars, Venus, and Mars, Saturn aspects. Too much passion is destructive. I don't care how cute the person is, how good the sex is. Too much passion in a relationship breeds jealousy, possessiveness, selfishness, impatience, and sometimes even cruelty. If Jonathan shows jealousy in manipulative or even aggressive ways, this may make Meagan's Neptune more attracted to him. Again, she has Neptune square Venus and Neptune square her ascendant. Because in Meagan's mind, Jonathan would not be acting jealous if he did not have feelings for her. Like, to be honest, this feels like the kind of relationship where the couple uses makeup sex as a band-aid for arguments and overall incompatibility. With the Neptune square Venus and ascendant aspect, Meagan is in love with the idea of saving a broken Jonathan who's lost everything because he got into an altercation with an ex-girlfriend. Now, Saturn is currently transiting Pisces, which is making an opposition with Meagan's Venus and ascendant. And it's also making a square to her native Neptune in Sagittarius. The universe is showing her red flags from now until the end of 2025 if Meagan chooses to ignore these red flags about Jonathan. Within the next several years, her love life will be upended by the Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius transits, which usually indicates an abrupt ending of some sort. Uranus in Gemini will make a square aspect with Meagan's ascendant in Venus, and Pluto in Aquarius will make an opposition to Meagan's sun in Leo. This relationship has the potential to shatter her ego delusions about her value and saving people from themselves, because at some point, she may have to sacrifice this relationship to save herself. Jonathan has Saturn in Capricorn and Venus in Libra. Although they don't form a square by degree, they do form a square by element. With Venus square Saturn, Jonathan has some self-esteem issues. He may feel like he has to buy love or earn love, or he may force his partners to go through trials and tribulations to prove their love to him, okay? And so he may feel like he doesn't deserve love, so he sabotages relationships with infidelity, or he pushes his partners away or puts them through tests to force them to prove their loyalty to him. I think Jonathan and Meagan have formed a trauma bond, hence Pluto and Venus, in the relationship. And once Jonathan feels more confident about himself, he will go back to being a philanderer. He enjoys the attention of multiple women because he has Jupiter in Cancer square Venus in Libra. Jupiter square Venus can be somebody who cannot get enough attention from women. They have an issue with commitment. They're always looking for pleasure or something new, something novel. They don't like to be hemmed down in their relationships. They like to explore their options. So I think that once Meagan gets too comfortable in this relationship, I think Jonathan may, pull the rug out from beneath her and start doing things to make her compete for his affections with other women. Okay? I saw Meagan on Shannon's Sharp a couple days ago, Club Shay Shay, and she looks very thin and even haggard compared to her usual appearance. Meagan has to be careful not to romanticize self-sacrifice and self-destruction for the sake of this relationship. Jonathan does not really give a damn about any of that. He's very independent and even selfish and not really in touch with his emotions. And to be honest, Jonathan has the moon in Sagittarius, square his sun in Virgo. He is more comfortable around people of different races and cultures. He's kind of awkward around people who remind him of his childhood or his childhood community. Sagittarius is an international sign. This is about foreign affairs, long-distance travel, interracial relationships. He's more comfortable around people who don't look like him because of his childhood experiences with the sun, square moon, and moon in Sagittarius. To be honest, I'm not sure if Jonathan feels emotionally connected to his race at all because of his experiences growing up I don't know what they were, but I think he had a traumatic childhood to some extent, some instability, some unpleasantness here. He likened Meagan to Coretta Scott King, who was Dr. King's widow. And Coretta Scott King is, lauded in the Black community as a long-suffering, loyal wife who looked past her husband's infidelities and just allowed him to be the great man that he was, to sacrifice himself for the country. It's troubling to me that Jonathan would liken Meagan to sort of like a matronly widow who sacrificed her happiness and pleasure for the sake of maintaining the image of her ex-husband or maintaining legacy of her ex-husband. This is kind of like Madonna horror complex-ish, and considering he's a Virgo, we have to be careful with that as well. And Meagan has Venus in Virgo too. There's a Sun-Venus conjunction here between them, which is an indicator of a lot of attraction as well. But the fact that he compared Meagan to Coretta is not like a sex symbol. She's not someone who a young man would, I'm not going to say would get married to. I'm not saying that. But she's somebody who a young, immature man would cheat on. Like Dr. King did. He cheated on Coretta many, many times. She was like this matronly, pious, church-going, traditional, quiet Southern woman, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But some men like excitement and thrill and novelty and, doing whatever. So I think that he's attracted to her, but him putting her on this pedestal, not even a pedestal, him making her this like patron saint, in a sense, like deifying her. It's almost like he's justifying dating her as a Black woman by comparing her to like this civil rights activist. Like their relationship is revolutionary. Their love is revolutionary. Like it's something unorthodox about it. What would be unorthodox about being with a Meagan Good? Like, she's been a sex symbol for 20 plus years. Why does she have to be a Coretta Scott King for you to appreciate her value as a woman? Why does she have to sacrifice herself in her career, in her peace, in her happiness, being your support system in order to have any value? I don't like that analogy. I'm not saying that Coretta Scott King is a bad person to be compared to. She is an honorable figure. Much respect to her, rest in peace to her, all that stuff. But I don't like that analogy because it makes it seem as if like Meagan is some sort of mule, like this emotional punching bag that he can use to make himself feel better about who he is as a Black man, like Coretta Scott King. You're not Dr. King though. You're not some revolutionary Black leader. You're just, I don't know, like it's just it was a weird association for me. Now, I don't know if he mentioned Coretta Scott King because people were saying that he has like a civil rights face. I have no idea why he would mention her, but whatever. Back to this. So, yeah, Meagan's Neptune makes a conjunction with Jonathan's moon, and this is an aspect for unconditional love and forgiveness. But again, this also plays into her savior complex. Neptune and Jupiter are also associated with narcissism because the ability or the desire to save or rescue someone deifies the savior. And sometimes the savior feels like the person who is saved should be indebted to them for life for saving them from themselves by way of poverty or loneliness or ugliness or depression or etc. Now, this is not always the case. But Meagan's attraction to men with issues may come from deep feelings of worthlessness. She may feel like she's worthless unless she's sacrificing her own happiness for someone else. And if the person she's with is happy and fulfilled on their own, she may feel like she doesn't have a purpose in that relationship. Like, why do you love me if you don't need me for anything? And this is very sad because it indicates that she may have felt like the love she received from others as a child was conditional, and she was only loved because she was famous or pretty or had money to help the family, something like that. This is the same issue that Whitney Houston went through. Now, Venus Virgo people only feel lovable if they are useful, and so they get used a lot. They get manipulated a lot, and this gets even worse when Neptune is an aspect to Venus and Virgo because Neptune causes confusion. And Meagan also has Neptune trine her sun and square her ascendant. She's high on life. She's very optimistic and idealistic about life in general, which is why she's been so fortunate in her career. But her love life has been tumultuous because she may be attracted to emotionally stunted men. Or men who are emotionally, mentally, or even physically abusive. A man who treats her right is boring for her. Jonathan has Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune in Capricorn, squaring his Venus and Mercury. He is not the faithful and committed type. Unfortunately, with this aspect, he may be the type to be disloyal or not faithful. He may tell women what they want to hear to get what he wants from them. Now, as a reminder, I'm not trying to break up Meagan and Jonathan. I do want them to be happy together. But I see here that Jonathan is going to teach Meagan some painful lessons that she has refused to learn from her previous relationships. Unfortunately, Meagan is in love with the idea of love, which in a world without ghouls, goblins, and gangsters would be fine. But again, so Meagan has to be careful not to let her insecurities destroy her life. Now, there's another point about the Neptune ascendant square that I did not mention. Meagan may be the type of person that changes her personality, her image, her lifestyle, and her sense of identity based on who she is dating. She is a very mutable, changeable character. This is great for acting, but not necessarily great for relationships because she kind of becomes who she is dating, or she changes her mindset, her perspectives, her attitude, her behavior, her persona, her identity based on who she's dating. If she's dating someone who's healthy, wholesome, and is, a relatively well-adjusted human being, then that's fine. But if she's dating somebody with lots of issues, she may internalize or take on those issues to identify or bond with them even more. So she has to be careful about that. On the positive side, there is a Venus-Jupiter conjunction between Meagan and Jonathan. They really do enjoy being together. Their highs are very high with this aspect, especially again since Meagan's Neptune is making a square aspect to Jonathan's Jupiter. The sky is the limit with them. They believe that. She's also addicted to how good he makes her feel. She feels optimistic about life. And at this point, because he is attracted to her and attractive to her, and he kind of sort of needs him in a sense, he's down on his luck, she feels very sexy around him, very lucky, very youthful again. She feels like he accepts her for who she is for now. So regardless of the red flags, she will continue to make excuses for him for the reasons I discussed earlier. Now, with all that said, with Neptune square Jupiter, they both need to stay away from drugs and alcohol while they're in this relationship because it can get out of control really easily, okay? Now, speaking about things getting out of control, let's talk about Mars. Mars aspects are great for sexual chemistry, but they're terrible for conflict resolution, especially the conjunction, square, or opposition aspects. Mars elicits feelings of impatience, entitlement, independence, leadership, and courage. Mars' sign and house placement indicates the way we initiate conflicts is how we fight and who or what turns us on sexually. Usually, the sign that Mars is in shows us who we attract the most sexually. For example, Jonathan may find Virgo's Sun, Venus, or Ascendant women very attractive, and Meagan may find emotionally intense Cancerian men very attractive. Jonathan's Mars is in Meagan's first house. So again, he's very attracted to her physical appearance and her personality. Meagan also has Venus in her first house, square Neptune, which is one of the aspects for being conventionally beautiful, even gorgeous. Again, Meagan has been a sex symbol for decades. She's now in her 40s and still very attractive. Meagan's Mars makes a conjunction with Jonathan's exalted Jupiter in Cancer. This aspect is great for business. Jonathan may come up with the ideas, and Meagan puts in the energy and the effort to get things done. I do think that this aspect also heightens sexual chemistry because Jupiter and Mars increases this daredevil, risk-taking, devil-may-care, reckless behavior between couples, and even in the natal chart, they feel unstoppable together, which is cute and all. But as we saw with Whitney and Bobby, the world wasn't their biggest enemy. They were to each other. Unfortunately, there's also a Mars-Saturn opposition between Meagan and Jonathan. Meagan's Mars is in Cancer and Jonathan's Saturn is in Capricorn, conjunct Uranus and Neptune. This aspect is another huge red flag for me because when two malefics are in conflict, at some point, the couple may have ego clashes and one person may go to extremes to control, manipulate, or bend the other person to their will. With Mars square his moon natally, Jonathan has a temper. and he can become emotionally, even verbally abusive if he does not get his way. Mars in Virgo can be very petty, quietly and patiently tallying up indiscretions before coldly disconnecting from the relationship because it doesn't make sense anymore. Ben Affleck also has Mars in Virgo, and this is the weaponization of information and logic. Sentiments and emotions are cut with callousness that feels cruel at some point. This is like going from I love you and would do anything for you, and then one day, out of the blue, the Mars and Virgo person who says they love you and they want to be in a relationship with you, they are now dressing you down, telling you all your flaws, picking you apart piece by piece, listing all the reasons why the relationship can't work, time-stamped and in alphabetical order. So it's shocking because the Mars and Virgo type appears to be unassuming and passive, but their minds are very active. They may not say a lot, but they're very observant. And when they're ready to speak, best believe that they will do so without consideration of your feelings. Mars and Virgo natives can cut you to the white meat once they're done with the relationship. I'm honestly concerned that Jonathan will toss Meagan out like trash once he's done with her, especially with his moon in Sagittarius square Meagan's ascendant in Virgo. Like, something about her triggers him. Even though he's attracted to her, she's still triggering for him emotionally. With the moon square ascendant aspect between them, Meagan's personality and or physical appearance reminds Jonathan of his own internal conflict or some emotional discomfort. I'm not going to say that Jonathan has self-hatred issues, but I believe that his relationship with Meagan is going to force him to come face to face with aspects of his identity, whether it's his physical appearance or his race or his culture or his background or his origins, whatever, his childhood, that he's run away from up until this relationship. The way he treats Meagan will be a reflection of how he feels about himself because, again, of that identity issue thing. I'm only saying this because of this Sagittarius moon aspect, which is forming a square to his Mars and Sun in Virgo. Jonathan may have some hidden anger towards his mother, which has a significant impact on how he sees himself as a black man. He may even blame like his blackness or his black experience or something to do with his father on his mother. He may not be doing this overtly, but I think this is something that's subconscious. The moon deals with our subconscious emotional baggage that affects the way that we react and respond and relate to people in relationships. Yeah, so with the moon being in Sagittarius, Jonathan needs to be around people who are of different races, cultures, ethnicities, people who don't remind him of where he's from or his background, right? So yeah, Meagan will have to bear the brunt of this self-hatred, which she may be idealizing at this point as, I gotta fix him, he needs my support, he has emotional issues, I can fix his trauma, I can heal him, that kind of thing. Okay, what's more troubling here is that Meagan has both a Mars-Saturn square and a Mars-Pluto square in her natal chart, which is surprising to me because on the surface she appears to be very nice and personable, but underneath that sweet and beautiful veneer is someone who wants complete control over their partners, and she may resort to emotional manipulation to get what she wants. Now the Neptune square makes sense because it is easier to control broken and damaged people who need you and who you can easily trigger with the threat of you leaving them or some other threat versus somebody who is healthy, whole, and who has their SHIT together. Mars square, conjunct, or opposite Saturn in the natal chart is unforgiving, unrelenting, and ruthless, and so is Mars square Pluto. Meagan is not only unafraid of danger, she may actually be attracted to drama or trauma. And if you take a look at her dating history, you can see that this is the case. I'm not saying that Meagan is a bad person. I'm stating that Meagan may be attracted to men who are abusive because in her mind, if she can get a reaction out of them, she's in control of them in some way. She can trigger them. She can get them to react and respond to her the way that she wants. Now, let me not get into this too much because I didn't expect this. Honestly, when I started doing this reading, I was like, okay, this is fun and light. No, not with these aspects. Mars square Pluto and Mars square Saturn is a doozy to deal with in relationships. Meagan also has Sun Moon square here, and her moon is in fall in Scorpio. She also has identity issues and isn't comfortable expressing her emotions. Even though she has Mercury in Leo, she speaks from the heart, but but she speaks from the heart in a way that protects her feelings in a sense. Like, this is putting on bravado, arrogance, like, I don't really need you anyway, I'm good without you. But in actuality, she's hurting on the inside, and she may react and respond to men this way to trigger them and get a reaction out of them, like, well, if you don't care, I'm going to make you care, that kind of thing. Yeah, so Meagan, she may be a sweet talker that hides intense fears about abandonment, betrayal, and unexpected changes beneath a chill, charming, cool, relaxed, unbothered veneer, which is great for acting in Hollywood, right? She knows how to, sell herself in auditions. She knows how to be charming and personable to get the role that she wants. Her mask game is very strong, but the Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini transits will crack that mask. The Saturn transit is already making people look at Meagan differently. Saturn's opposing her ascendant, which is her physical parents. So people are seeing her differently, especially after her divorce from Devon. Meagan, like many beautiful people, are afforded a certain level of grace that protects them from dealing with the negative consequences of their actions. Like, pretty people can get away with being ratchet or self-destructive as long as they're still pretty. As a matter of fact, people will downplay their bad behavior like they did with Whitney or Kim Kardashian, who has Neptune conjunct her ascendant. Now, on another note, Jonathan's Mars is in Meagan's first house of personality and physical appearance. This relationship is changing Meagan's personality, and it is possible that Jonathan may make Meagan feel self-conscious about her physical appearance. Whatever insecurities that she has about the way she looks, Jonathan may be using that to manipulate her. When I saw Meagan on Club Shay Shay the other day, the way she looked shocked me, and it made me a little concerned because Meagan has always been an effortless beauty. Yes, she's had some tweaks here and there. She's talked about them. And she was always in the gym keeping her body tight. But now she looks like she's trying really hard to look a certain way. For many years, Meagan kept her hair really short. It looked really good on her. It fit her well. But ever since she got with Jonathan, she's been wearing these long, disheveled boho braid extensions that are too big and too heavy for her small face. And Meagan has been gorgeous for decades. She knows what works for her and what does not. For some reason, she's wearing these braids that look off on her. And I'm going to assume, this is not an astrological opinion here, this is just me looking at this as a woman. I'm going to assume that Jonathan may have a preference for women with long hair and a certain physique. Like, ever since she got with Jonathan, I feel like Meagan is trying too hard to look a certain way now. She looks gaunt and older and tired and with too much makeup that doesn't fit her. And I've never seen her like that before. Like, I saw a couple years ago when she was modeling this swimsuit line on Instagram. She looked stunning, just flawless. But now she looks like too thin. She looks gaunt and just drawn and drained. I really hope that Jonathan is not being a negative influence on Meagan. I really hope that there are no drugs and alcohol involved in this relationship. If there are, it can get really bad. I'm not saying Meagan is doing anything now with drugs and alcohol. I'm not saying that. She seems to have lived a very healthy lifestyle up until this point, but she looks different in a way that I'm not happy about. It kind of reminds me of the way Whitney was looking when she was with Bobby. Very drawn, drained, tired, and just not like her usual self. Another thing I forgot to mention about the Neptune-Venus and Neptune ascendant square is that these people can have addictive personalities. They may be addicted to drugs or sex or any vices that help them to escape trauma or boredom or whatever. So Meagan has to be very careful with alcohol and drugs in particular because she does have an addictive personality. Now let's get into Pluto. I talked about Pluto briefly, and when I first thought about this couple, I did not take into consideration how Pluto comes into play. I think I ignored it out of fear or subconsciously I wanted to downplay the relationship. Well, you cannot downplay Pluto, especially when it makes a conjunction with any personal planet in a synastry chart. Not just a conjunction, an opposition or a square as well. A great analogy for Pluto and Venus relationships are Beauty and the Beast or Persephone and Hades. Pluto is the planet of transformation through painful crises that facilitate an ego death, which shatters our illusions about our self-worth, value, relationships, our health, mortality, money, etc. When Pluto makes an aspect to Venus, you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to do to keep this person in your life? How far into hell are you willing to crawl for a little piece of heaven. The Pluto-Venus conjunction can become obsessive, desperate, addictive, and dangerous. You think you love the other person so much you're willing to destroy yourself, not only to prove to them how much you love them, but also to prove to yourself and to God, in a sense, that you love this person enough to make a fool out of yourself, which in your mind makes you feel entitled to them. Like, look at everything I've done for you. Look at how much I've sacrificed for you. I've done this, that, and the third. And now I own you. You belong to me. Persephone and Hades. You ate 6 pomegranate seeds. I own you in perpetuity. I sacrificed my career for you. I own you in perpetuity. I gave you 4, 5, 6 kids. I can do whatever I want to do, and I own you in perpetuity. That is Venus and Pluto. People willing to, I'm not going to say degrade themselves, but they lose themselves in a relationship to prove to the other person how much they love them. And sometimes that sacrifice is not reciprocated or appreciated. And that's when the ego death comes, right? So yeah, Pluto is like an incinerator. It burns away all of the impurities that makes us insecure, fearful, paranoid, clingy, self-destructive, and weak. Both Meagan and Jonathan are sexually attracted to each other. But the sexual attraction has nothing to do with romance. This attraction is needed to facilitate the spiritual refinement process, which needs to be handled with patience, maturity, and wisdom. If there is no patience, no maturity, no wisdom, and no honesty, there's going to be a lot of pain, disappointment, and maybe even bitterness. Meagan will continue to ignore all the warning signs in this relationship until she feels like she's losing the one thing that she values more than anything else, whether it's fame, beauty, self-respect, money, health, or even her freedom. This relationship will test her boundaries. If she has no boundaries, she will be dragged into the abyss with Jonathan and herself, her own demons. I personally cannot say what Meagan values more than anything else, but this relationship with Jonathan will force Meagan to identify with what her values are. Does she value herself enough to save herself from a toxic relationship, or is she willing to let herself be destroyed like Whitney did for the sake of a man who does not feel the same way about her as she did about him? Now, I'm not saying that Jonathan doesn't have feelings for her. He does have feelings for her. His Pluto is making a conjunction with Meagan's moon. This is intense emotional possessiveness. Jonathan also has feelings for her. It's not all just Meagan being delusional and so on and so forth. But the way that Jonathan expresses his emotions is maybe different from the way that Meagan expresses hers. Jonathan's needs are different from Meagan's needs. And so if your needs are clashing and you're not getting what you want in a relationship, what are you willing to do to force your partner to do what you want them to do? That's when Mars and Saturn and Pluto and Mars and Pluto and Venus comes into the picture. What are you willing to do to make sure this person stays in your life? If you feel them losing attraction for you, if they're distracted by someone or something else, if you're losing control over them, if this relationship isn't turning out the way you expect it to, what are you willing to do to hold on to it? And that's when things get gnarly. If I don't have complete control over you, what am I willing to do to get you back into the fold and back under my control? This can be emotional manipulation. This can be addictions. This could be physical abuse. Many things are possible when you're dealing with Mars, Saturn, Venus, and Pluto. And all those things are very intense. So, Meagan is in her 40s and John is in his 30s. Hopefully they have had enough life experiences to develop some sort of maturity on how to handle this type of passion and intensity. If they have not cultivated that at this point, this relationship is going to be very tumultuous. Passionate, but tumultuous. Like I said, I personally cannot say what Meagan values more than anything, but this relationship with John will force her to identify with what that is. What do you love more than you love this man? She doesn't have any kids with him at this point. Her career is what it is. At some point, Meagan may have to choose between what she values the most in life for herself and her relationship with Jonathan. As a matter of fact, both Meagan and Jonathan may feel that they have to let go of the relationship to save themselves. Not only because it is Pluto-Venus aspect, but because we also have a Saturn-Jupiter square double whammy, which I have not talked about. This relationship is going to drag both of them down psychologically, emotionally, and even socially. The Saturn-Jupiter square is like when two drug addicts are in a relationship and then one person tries to get clean, the other person isn't ready. They're not on the same page when it comes to responsibility and opportunity. One person may have to sacrifice their opportunities to take care of someone else. Like, for example, Meagan may lose some of her fans or her professional opportunities because Jonathan has a bad reputation. And, Bobby experienced the same thing with Whitney Houston. They had a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. Bobby had Saturn in Aries in its fall, and Whitney had Jupiter in Aries. Bobby chose to sacrifice his career opportunities to support Whitney because she was this mega super duper star. And at some point, he resented her for that. When Meagan and Jonathan see how much their relationship is hurting them and how much they're losing because of their relationship dynamic, they will start to resent each other. And all of this Mars, Pluto, Venus energy may become really volatile as a result. I personally do not like seeing Mars in the first house overlays and synastry charts because there is a potential for physical violence against the first house person. I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but Mars and Virgo in the first house in a synastry reading can indicate of someone who is very critical of the other person's appearance, hypercritical. They're picking their partner apart, their physical appearance. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? It's a gnarly aspect, in my opinion. Yes, it's good for sexual attraction and chemistry. And, these two have a gung-ho attitude about their relationship. As a matter of fact, as we saw the other day, Meagan is willing to fight anyone who is trying to get in the way of this relationship. Again, similar to Bobby and Whitney, there are a lot of parallels between that relationship and this one. I really hope they're not doing any drugs. Because if they start taking drugs now, it's going to make things so much worse. I'm just saying. So if they're not doing drugs, that's great. They need to not start with drugs or alcohol. Okay? Sometimes with Saturn Jupiter squares, people may use addiction to control the other person. It's like someone who enables bad behavior in order to get away with abuse in a relationship. That's a possibility here too. But I'm gonna leave it there. There's a lot more I can cover in this relationship in the future. I may do a part 2. I will say that I'll be surprised if this relationship lasts until 2026 because of the Saturn and Pisces transit opposing Meagan's ascendant and Jonathan's sun. If Meagan and or Jonathan decides to ignore Saturn's warning signs now, there's going to be a lot more suffering in the future as the relationship progresses. In the beginning of the relationship, a lot of people can ignore Saturn. Saturn's influence isn't usually felt until there's some sort of block or restriction or some time has passed. And now you're starting to see the flaws of the person that is preventing you guys from really connecting on a deep emotional, mental, physical, or spiritual level. That's when you start to feel Saturn. Initially, Saturn's influence can be overlooked by Mars and Venus and Neptune and Jupiter even, because the personal planets move much quicker than the outer planets. So the relationship has to be consummated or has to be brought together first by Mars and Venus and the Sun before Saturn can start trouble with all of its rules and regulations and karmic baggage. Okay. Now, if you want to order a live or pre-recorded personal consultation with me, the link is in the description box. Thank you for listening. I look forward to reading your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.